أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. Welcome to this live lecture, live streamed, alhamdulillah, and I hope that everything is okay with you on the technical side. And I want to thank on your behalf, my behalf, and all of us, Obaida, who is my assistant and giving me, following the whole thing and helping me in with the technicalities and also the questions. Let me start with this lecture with a few things that I wanted to say, and especially as we are talking about freedom and liberation, and the topic this year, with all the lectures that we had, is very much around us. And I have been talking about this topic over the last few lectures, and while we are talking about this, we know today, and we heard yesterday and today, what is happening in some countries. I have been repeating things that are happening in Africa, in Congo, and then in Central Africa, what is happening in Myanmar, with the Rohingyas, and the discrimination and extermination that they are facing today. This is unacceptable, and we have to be quite clear on this. While I'm talking now, and you know that I wrote this book about the Arab awakening, and I was very much supporting the people in the streets, while at the same time I was cautiously optimistic. I was not talking about the Arab Spring, I was not talking about revolutions. I thought that we were only looking at the political side of the equation and not the economic side. And what in fact was presented at the political spring in the Arab world ended up being an economic nightmare, with all these countries that are scattered, divided, and now under control. While at the same time, what is happening in Egypt, I was very critical towards the whole process with the Morsi regime, and I said that many mistakes were made, and things that had to be reformed, and the whole process was not well managed, and I was critical about that. But at the same time, we can't, if we are Democrats, if we are clear with our values, and we speak about freedom, accept what the new dictator there, who is worse than the people before him, who came after an internal military coup first within, and then a military coup the beginning of July, last July. I think that we have to be quite clear. We heard yesterday in Egypt that 529 people have been sentenced to death penalty. And just this is the first time in Egypt that something like this happened. And it's maybe the first time in history that we are facing such an incredible, unbelievable, and unacceptable way of dealing with the judiciary. And we have now to condemn this, and to ask the international community, how come you are so vocal when it comes to Ukraine, and when it comes to even, saying that Russia was not respecting the constitution, and we have been so silent with the Egyptian army. Because in fact, at the end of the day, the perception is that we don't really care about human dignity and freedom and justice and constitution or constitutionality. We care much more about our interests, and I think that we should, and this is a moral duty to send a strong message to this dictator, Sisi, and all the army, the corrupt people that are running the country now, that this is unacceptable. And it's not only, by the way, targeting and stigmatizing the Muslim Brotherhood. It's all the opponents. Many people have been sentenced to death penalty while not being from the Muslim Brotherhood. They were resistant, and we were told, and we are told, that these people are sentenced in such a way because of the killing of one uh, uh, um, police man that was involved, and who was killed, and then we don't speak about the thousands now. Human Rights Watch was talking about more than few hundreds. It was we are reaching thousands of people who were killed, and then add to this more than 20 to 23,000, even more people in jail now after the coup. And we are talking about the democratic process, we are talking about spring, we are talking about the end of political Islam. As much as we can be, and we should be critical towards political Islam, we cannot be silent when something like this is happening. So this is to start with, and I know that some religious people, I don't know how they do that, how they read the scriptural sources, how they read the Quran, and how they read the hadith, the prophetic traditions, and how they read the seerah of the Prophet والسلام, just to be able to support the army from Saudi Arabia to the Emirates, and so many countries that are dealing in such a way with, betraying the very principles of Islam. Having said that, now let me come to our discussion here about freedom and new slavery, and what we are witnessing today. Let me start with something which is important when it comes to understanding Islam. The very essence of Islam is based on the Tawheed, La ilaha illallah. This acknowledgement that there is only one God and no other God is in fact from the very beginning a process of liberation, a liberation process through which our conscience, our consciousness, our being, our soul, our very presence in the world is liberating itself. We are liberating ourselves from any kind of dependency, any kind of subjugation to any other power in the world. In fact, this acknowledgement that there is one God is having two consequences. The first one is to say there is only one humanity and we are all equal, black, white, rich, poor, women, men, all equal in our being and in our dignity, our essential dignity. And this is how we understand وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. لَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ, it means is that we dignified, we gave dignity to human beings. So we are all having the same equal dignity. Having said that, what is also the second point here is that we should resist any kind of alienation, any kind of dependency, any kind of addiction or alienation that is preventing us from experiencing this connection to the one, to this connection to ourselves, and in the way we have to be free human beings. So Tawheed, the very essence of this testimony that we are expressing and that we are translating in our life, it's about liberating ourselves. And I said this in previous lectures, and we have to get this right from the very beginning. This is our understanding of Islam. This is the understanding of the very message of Islam as the starting point of everything which has to do with Islam. Means that our dignity is based on three things. The first one is knowledge, and we said that this is the very understanding of علم آدم الأسماء كلها, that God taught Adam, and it means human beings, the names. So the knowledge, it's part of our dignity. The second is freedom, and freedom means that I have a conscience. I have and have the choice to go in one way or another, and this freedom is part of my dignity. And then when we speak about freedom, there is this dimension of responsibility. You are responsible of your freedom because you have this consciousness, you understand the values, and you have to choose. So our dignity is based on these two dimensions, and the way we deal with this has to do, if I have a conscience, is this consciousness that I have that I'm acting for my freedom, means that this is what defines my dignity. Then if you took this from me, if you took my freedom, if you took my conscience, if you say, for example, like Goebbels was saying in the Nuremberg trial, what he was saying is that I have no conscience. I was doing this because I was ordered to do so. So, in fact, this is a kind of dehumanizing ourselves, dehumanizing what is the very essence of being a human. And this is why that's not acceptable. So there is something which is slavery means, in fact, not to acknowledge the intrinsic freedom of human beings, and then not to respect the conscience, this consciousness, this capacity, faculty to decide for oneself. So anything that is touching or alienating this is something which is not acceptable from an Islamic viewpoint, because this is the way we define human being, and this is the way we understand the very verse that I was quoting. لقد كرمنا بني آدم. So we gave this dignity. So the dignity is based on these three things. So this is the starting point of our understanding of the Islamic message and the Islamic teaching from the very beginning. Now, there is a second thing that we have to say when it comes to the kind of dependency. How are we dealing with this? In fact, we have to liberate ourselves from any kind of dependency or addiction. And the first dependency could be to ourselves. So the first jail is, as we said and repeated, is our ego. And we have to liberate ourselves in order not to end up being the slave of our own ego when we don't know how to master, to control ourselves. It could be through our instincts or through our desires or through anything that is defining us without us controlling what is defining us. And then you have this consciousness, but you don't know how to manage. You don't know how to control. You don't know how to deal with yourself. And your ego could be the first jail, and your ego could be the first dimension of this internal, intimate slavery when it comes to ourselves. But you can also have this kind of addiction to anything, which could be power, money, fashion, social status, even your own life, and then everything that is creating into you or towards you or within your own self, within your own mind, within your own intellect or within your own way of life. Addictions and dependency is in fact creating something which is a potential way for you to be attached or to be dependent or to be addict, and at the end a potential way towards a kind of intimate or public slavery. And this is where if potentially, I mean, because it's not in itself slavery, if at one point you go as far as to lose your damir, your consciousness, your conscience, your intellect, and then you end up selling yourself for the sake of money, selling yourself for the sake of power, selling who you are, not respecting who you are. So this is an old and a modern slavery. And this is where you have to understand that this is exactly the opposite of anything that is part of the Islamic message. So Islamic message is very much based on, in fact, you need to understand you are true in your testimony that there is one God if you are a free mind, having knowledge and using your freedom with responsibility. And this is the way we understand this very meaning. So it's completely opposed and in contradiction with anything which has to do with this new slavery or slavery as we are defining it. Now, let me come to something that is very important. We cannot deny the fact that in history, if we look at what people have done or what was done by societies in the past, yes, we had institutionalized way of dealing with human beings and to transform this into institutionalized slavery. So we know what happened to African people being sent in America, in the United States of America, and they were treated the way they were treated. And you say that this was institutionalized. We know also that this happened in Africa, that this happened in Europe. And as uh, 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 um, early and as late, I would say, as the beginning of the 20th century, when we have human zoos in Europe, where you were able to go and to see, Africans and working, and they were presented as animals in the zoo, and they were people were to go and to see this exotic way of living for human beings coming from Africa. So it was not exactly slavery, but the whole symbolism behind it was very much based on that, very much based on having a perception that these human beings have less value than us. And at the end, their conscience is not the same as us. Their mind, their intellect, their spirit is not exactly the same. And when you start with this, and when you have this, when you are nurturing that, it means that there is something which is very close to this relationship between the master and the slave. And I would say that this is something that was clear and was institutionalized for centuries. And it's recently, in fact, in historical terms, if you take one century or 1.5 century, this was quite recent. But this stopped, even though we also have to acknowledge that we have new types of slavery and things that are institutionalized in another way, and I will come to this later. Having said that, we also have to add it's not only coming from the West or from the United States of America or American countries, North American countries, or Europe. We know as well that Arabs, that people who are Muslims were dealing with other human beings in a way which was in fact institutionalized slavery. And we cannot deny this. And we should not enter into a negative competition between, civilizations or countries by saying, oh, the white people did much more than the Arabs or the black people. We should acknowledge the fact that many people, Arabs, were involved, and this is simply not acceptable. And some of them, supported by scholars and supported by governments, were doing this in the name of, in fact, using Islam, but this was all about business. And this has to be acknowledged in a self-critical way, because acknowledging this, it's not to enter into, apologizing about what is happened in the past and keeping on repeating this and to nurture the sense of guilt. No, it's not about that. It's just to acknowledge this because this is the dignity of people who are not respected in the past, and it's also for us going through this process of acknowledging is to go to move on and to be able now to face this and not to repeat this, and then also to reform our own understanding. So it's also a process through which we go to acknowledge what was done in the name of our civilization, in the name of our values, in the name of our religions, and to be able to face the contemporary challenges equipped with a self-critical approach. So never idealize one's past and never deny what was done to people. And this is something that is also universally shared among societies, cultures, and civilizations. And Muslims were involved in slavery in history. They have to acknowledge this and they have to be self-critical. Now, when it comes to this, and we try to enter, we need, and this is the first point of my talk this evening, is to say something that we have to clarify from an Islamic perspective. And talking about slavery when it comes to the Quran, when it comes to the prophetic tradition, and when it comes to our history, it's quite interesting. Why? Because it helps us to understand better the deep teachings of Islam and the way we have to deal with them when it comes to dealing with the scriptural sources. It's true, when you read the Quran, that the Quran is referring to slavery. No one can deny this. And we have to read this, and this is what it's important to understand. That when you say, for example, we have this coming from some Muslims and also coming from some of our friends people of other faiths say you have to democratize the way you read the Quran. That's true. We want the Quran when it comes to worshipping God and this way of remembering the essence of life. It's for everybody. But when it comes to draw, to extract from the scriptural sources the message, it's important here to understand that we need to be equipped. We need to be equipped. We need to know what we are talking about. And this is where, when it comes to the Quran, we understand that this was revealed through over a period of 23 years. And then we need to understand the steps. And this is where we understand that, yes, the starting point of the revelation is within a society, the Arab societies, the Arab tribes and clans that were in fact implementing slavery and living with slavery. And then the Quran started to come, the revelation started, and step by step, making it clear for the Muslims that the very essence of this religion is to talk to free men and free women. That free women and free men should be the people who are going to bear the message of Islam. Meaning that what happened to Bilal, for example, radiallahu anhu, and the companions is, if you are making a mistake, if you are a sinner, if you want to expiate, if you want to go beyond your own sins, and if you are doing so, what you have to do is to free the slaves, to free somebody, meaning the process of you becoming or purifying yourself is through a process of liberating the others. And step by step, the whole movement was about you have to stop. Slavery is a fact of the past and should not be your future. In fact, slavery is against the Islamic teachings. It's against our understanding. So when we find it in the Quran, it's not to say because it was in the Quran or it is in the Quran, it means that we have to keep it. No, it was in the Quran, it is in the Quran, and it was within the Quran a process through a history that you have to understand the movement. And at the end, what you should get after 23 years is that you go through the movement and you have to carry on in history beyond the death of the Prophet, beyond the end of the revelation. The process should be carried on, and then you have to stop. So, at the end, getting this movement, you understand that slavery is anti-Islamic. And you can do exactly the same, for example, when it comes to the way we deal with women and domestic violence, is that you understand that it was something which was spread around in the Arab societies, the patriarchal societies. And then you understand that the verses, step by step, are going towards a movement which is to stop it. And then your example is the Prophet, peace be upon him, والسلام, and he never beat a woman. And you understand that his example coming at the end is helping us to understand the whole movement of the revelation. We have to go beyond this, being able to say today that domestic violence, it's not Islamic. It's against our principles. We should understand the movement of the revelations, and it helps also to understand that you are not going to change mentalities overnight. It's a long process. It's a step-by-step history. Time is part of the process. So you get the principles, you understand that the principles and the objectives are clear, but you need time to deal with mindsets, with cultures, with understandings. But the principles are clear and the objectives are clear. Slavery is not Islamic and cannot be. Even if the Quran is talking about it, it's talking about it over a period of time where we understand that there is a process, there is an evolution where we understand that we have to stop. Having said that, this means that we are equipped now to come to the way we have to deal with the world and the way we have to deal with ourselves as Muslims, saying that in the name of our principles, anything which has to do with a type of slavery should be stopped, and we cannot accept that as something which is against our religion and against our understanding of what it is to be a Muslim. Now, if we come to this in understanding, what I wanted to add now is just to try to come to some of the points that I wanted to make and to bring to the fore in our discussion now. So, this is Islam, and this is the way we have to understand this, and we have to be clear on that. We can't play with the text and try to justify something which is unjustifiable. It's not possible for us to say, no, in Islam we can go for this. We need to understand that, and we need to have to be quite clear about that. Now, what are the new type of slavery that we are witnessing? And this is where there is something which is quite deep in the global world, in globalization, with this global economy. Uh, what we would expect when it comes to economy is that yes, we have commodities and we have human beings and we are trading and we are subject and trading objects and commodities. The problem today with the global economy is that we get a sense that human beings now are entering into a process of commodification, commodification, this being a commodity and becoming a commodity in the way we deal with the world is something which is really problematic in the way we have to deal with this, and we have to understand these commodities today. And human beings who were in fact should be the subjects when it comes to trading are now being object, and this object is being a commodity itself in the way we are losing our consciousness, and we are not only making money, but we are part of the business. Is that commodification of human beings is when now we have a value in the way we are object of the whole business. When it comes, for example, to fashion, when it comes to anything which has to do with the world of entertainment, when it comes to the way we are used ourselves. And we remember something that is close to all the philosophies and all the religions is in fact that we should be considered and respected as a being and as ends, goals, purposes, where our dignity is protected and not as object, not as means. We are not to be used as means to make money or to be commodified in a way which is not acceptable. This process, it's something that we need to assess as a Muslim, and to understand in which way it has to be dealt with as human beings. It's a very important question in the global economic world where human beings are now the object even of trading in the way the business is done, in the way, for example, what was done to women with our bodies, with our being in we are sold and we are bought in a way in the world because we are making money. So this is commodification that we need to get also in the global economy, in the way advertisement, entertainment, fashion are using human beings as object and no longer as independent, autonomous. And it's creating a new dependency here. And this dependency is to treat us with no conscience, but only as consumers and people who are buying and selling without consciousness, without awareness, without distance and critical distance from what the whole process is, from this very powerful economy and very powerful trends that are making money out of humanity and transforming humanity into commodities. That's something that for us, it's alienation, is where we are losing our conscience, we are losing our understanding, our critical distance. And by saying this, what is important here is very much this understanding that we are less human being, we are losing our dignity. And as I was saying, slavery is when a human being whose qualification and definition is intellect and consciousness is losing consciousness and not and being the object of a system, an object that is helping a means that is making money and through which and not through whom we make money. It's this commodification that I was talking about, which is a trend that we are witnessing, and all the means, it could be internet, it could be all these very powerful means that are integrating human beings into a means among the other means, and through all the process we are making money. This is something which is the opposite of all the spirituality, because at the end our spiritualities, it could be, the Hindu, the Buddhist, or the monotheistic traditions, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, or the philosophies. Like, for example, even if you go to the Greek philosophers, you will find that be a being, and a being is defined through his or her intellect, consciousness, autonomy, and freedom. And here you are not free, you are trapped into a system that is transforming you into an object. And this is one of the main problems. Now, there is a second dimension that we need, and this is, by the way, this is very important, because very often we for the people who are listening to me in Malaysia or in Indonesia or in Singapore or in southern countries, very often we look at the world, we look at the north and say, this is coming from the west, this is a Western way of life. I'm sorry. We can see this everywhere, even in the capitals, in the southern countries. This is exactly the same. We have exactly the same problem. We are facing exactly this commodification, and we are object of the same trend. This is global. It's global. This is a new global slavery where we are becoming object without conscience and subject of, in all the fields, by the way. It could be scientific, it could be entertainment, it could be fashion. The big picture is quite worrying when it comes to this. Now, there is a second type that we have to understand. This international division of work, of the way we see now the global economy having, businesses or transnational corporation having now divided the world and finding, or creating jobs that are with low income, are people who are asking less in southern countries. So this international division of work is problematic. Why? Because now we in the West, in Western countries, in rich industrialized countries, we are getting products that are in fact uh, uh, produced by people who are treated like slaves. You remember Michael Moore's movie about Nike, for example, and the way they were treating the people. $1 per day for some, $2 per day sometimes, and 12 square meter where they can move, and this is life, this is what they are doing. So this is a new type of slavery. They are working just for us. Our luxury is their slavery. Our luxury is their slavery. So they are producing, clothes, dresses, sometimes a soccer ball for our, soccer matches or football or whatever. It's done there in conditions that are unacceptable. This is inhuman, insane, and still we are using human beings, and this is new slavery. They are not getting the money, and sometimes they live in conditions for young kids, 10 years old, 12 years old, living in conditions that are unacceptable and treated as slaves. And we have people working for transnational corporations, and sometimes the states know exactly what is happening, and it's a silent. It's as if we are covering in the media when there is a catastrophe somewhere, but the silent, ongoing process of slavery is not making the headlines. It's not there. We are not talking about this. It's as if it's normalized. And this international division of work, it's accepted in a way which is, in fact, showing that at the global level, there is a new type of slavery that is accepted. And from an Islamic perspective, this is just unacceptable. And in fact, we have Muslim majority countries, we have Muslims who are involved in this process, and because it's not seen, we have some want to be Islamically visible through punishment or through rules, but when it comes to the economic world, they are quite absent, and this is something that we cannot accept. Now you have a third dimension. In our global world, money is going very fast. The financial transactions are very fast, and there is no barrier or hindrances or nothing like this. Money is migrating very fast in the global world. But who human beings, when they are poor, when they live in conditions in southern countries that are simply just acceptable, economically speaking, poverty, corruption everywhere in southern country, no job, unemployment, no education, and then some are migrating and they are coming to richer countries where they can get, at least they can hope to survive. So sometimes they leave their countries because of political reasons, and sometimes because of economic reasons. And the way they are treated in the host countries, if we can call them host countries, it's just not acceptable. Sometimes they are ill-documented, or they don't have passports. So, in fact, sometimes this way of dealing with them and not being officially acknowledged is putting them into a situation where they are discriminated because they cannot be there. We let them in. We know that they are here. Sometimes it's known by the governments, and then they are exploited. This is institutionalized exploitation in the way we deal with some of the migrants. And then add to this the fact that some are coming and I just wrote a book with a philosopher, Edgar Morin, and I was just repeating because I was involved in this discussion about citizenship and Muslims in the West, and I was keeping repeating the 6 principles of what it means to be part of a society, a democratic society, saying we have to respect the rule of law, we have to respect equal citizenship for men and women, poor and rich, so equal citizenship, it's important. Universal suffrage, is that the majority process, it's important. Accountability, when it comes, you are elected and you have a mandate, and then separation of power, judiciary, legislative, and executive power, and then separation of authority between the state authority, which is a bottom-up process, and the religious authority, and we cannot confuse the two, and having a religion taking over the state and imposing a reference and not accepting the diversity of religions. So the separation of authority is very important. And while I was talking to him, he told me, look, Tariq, there is something missing in what you are saying. And I said, what? He said, it's all fine. You are talking about citizens and you are talking about people who are documented and they have their passports and they are acknowledged as being members of a structured society. But what about the migrants? What about the Roms, for example, in France? What about the people of the journey and people who are the gypsies and people who are traveling or migrant workers, for example? What are we talking about here? Are we forgetting them from the picture? And I said, he's right. So I added the seven principles is when it comes to democracy, when it comes to even our common ethics, is we should understand that it's not your passports that is giving you or bringing you a dignity. It's the fact that you are a human being. So the dignified way of being with migrants, with people who are coming, and sometimes it's because of economic reasons, and sometimes it's because of political reasons. But at the end, it doesn't matter. At the end, we should respect the dignity of human beings. And the problem is that the migrants, they don't have so much defenders or so much people who are talking on their behalf. Why? Because they don't vote and they are very often disenfranchised or poor. So no way for them to get some interests because at the end they are not useful for the political process or even useful for the democratic progress. So at the end they are lost, so they are voiceless. So we need to be the voice for the voiceless, and when it comes to them, to be very critical. And this is internationally. There is no country can patronize, no country can lecture another country, because what we have in the United States, for example, we have the Latinos, the way they are treated in the job market, or the migrants, and even people coming from Mexico, for example, or north of the countries where you have a wall in southern in San Diego to prevent the people from coming, and the wall is reminding us of what is happening in the occupied territory in Palestine, where people are just treated in a way which is just undignified. It's not acceptable. And then we have this in the United States of America, and in the job market, the migrants sometimes are without document, they are exploited, they are underground, and they don't know how to deal with it. And nobody is talking about that because they are not citizens. So we celebrate citizenship, but we are not celebrating humanity. So what it means for democracies when we are celebrating our common citizenship and we are forgetting our common humanity. And we talk about humanism and we talk about human rights, really, or citizens' rights, and forgetting humanity of the migrants. So this is there. It's also in Europe exactly the same when we see people coming from Eastern Europe and the way they are treated, and coming from southern countries, the way they are treated. Migrants treated in a way which they are exploited, they are pushed sometimes to be underground, and some businesses and enterprises or transnational corporations using them, exploiting them in a way which is not acceptable. And we have new slavery, and this is also slavery when it comes to what is coming from Eastern Europe, and we have a new trends of slavery with prostitution, with women coming from Eastern European countries and being treated in Western European countries in a way which is just inhuman. It's against humanity. This is something that is not acceptable. This is new slavery. This is institutionalized sometimes and informal slavery. And we don't talk about this. We are saying, oh, slavery was in the 19th century. What about today? And come now to the Middle East, come now to the Gulf states, where we have today migrant workers. It's true in Saudi Arabia, it's true in Qatar, it's true in Emirates, it's true everywhere that we have people coming, or they are domestic workers, or they are migrant workers treated in a way which is not acceptable. We know what happened recently in Brazil, where people were working in conditions that are just not safe, exactly the same with what is happening in Gulf states. And we know how much people in this silence are treated in a completely like slaves and with no rights. and nobody talking about this, and we are very silent because have economic interests in the region. Exactly the same in India, exactly the same in Indonesia, exactly the same in Singapore or in Malaysia. These are all countries where, if we are serious, if we are consistent with our values, we have to say, no, there is a problem here. This is a hidden new slavery, and we have to act against anything like this. And if we come to what I said at the beginning, is the Islamic teachings is just the same as any humanistic positioning when it comes to this, or coming from the monotheistic religions, or coming from the spiritualities. Treat the people with dignity, treat the people as beings, not as means. We are not commodity, and these people are our brothers and sisters in humanity. This is what Islam is all about. This is why we have to be self-critical and not talk only about our citizenship and treat people who are not citizens as if they have less humanity. This is a slavery that we cannot. It's just not there in the media. It's not covered, but it's not acceptable, and we have to be quite clear about such situations that are completely unacceptable. And it comes exactly with the same message when it comes to the people who are leaving their country for economic reasons. It's as if we say, oh, if there is dictatorship over there, we accept because you come and you can face torture, you can face. But what about facing poverty? What about facing corruption? What about facing governments that are taking all the money, and by the way, putting the money in Western banks sometimes, and facing, corruption and no justice? If I flee a country because this country is not helping me to be a human being, is taking from me my consciousness, my dignity, and my freedom, and not even giving me and providing me with education. What if I leave the country and I come to wealthier countries where I can find my way? Some are risking their life, and look at what is happening in Lampedusa in Italy. I was crying, literally crying, when I watched the movie 12 Years Slave. It's just unbelievable. Just, it was, 1 century ago, the people were treated like this, and we know how much harm and suffering were there. And then you see the images coming from Lampedusa, and you see people naked, treated with no dignity, and in public like this. You say, these are the same images. Haven't we heard? Haven't we learned through history what is happening? How come are we repeating the same mistakes, the same unbelievable, unacceptable behavior? And we claim to be religious, and we claim to have ethics, and we claim to have values. No, we have interest, and we really don't care, and we are silent when it comes to this. And I would say here that Muslims, and us as Muslims, we have to come to this and to have to look at this, not by patronizing, say, you know what, the Islamic principles are great. Yes, the Islamic principles are great, but Muslims in history and Muslims today are not so great. They are silent as the others. They are using the business as the others. And we want to do the same when it comes to profit, when it comes to efficiency in economic terms, but not efficiency in humanistic terms, in what brings us to the very essence of what I was saying at the beginning, understanding what is the Islamic message. And this is where we have to be self-critical when it comes to our history, when it comes to our betrayal of our own principles, when it comes to what we are standing for in the whole process. And this is where we have to speak out. This is where we have to be the voice for the voiceless. This is where we should understand that if our luxury is the slavery, this is not acceptable. If our silence as to our principles is the way for us to pretend that we are dignified, our silence by definition is undignified. This is indignity. This is not possible. This is not Islam. This is not our religion. And if Islam and Muslims should bring something to the world today, it's this awareness. It's to be able to speak like this. It's to be self-critical with our own Muslim communities in the West, in Muslim majority countries, and to contribute with other people of conscience, of principles, and of ethics together. because we have so many people around who have this awareness, and they are very critical towards what is happening. So refusing being or this process of commodification, this process of transforming us into objects, this process of this international division of work where we have new slavery for working there and working for transnational corporation. And we see people even in the West, in inner cities, in the cities, say, you know what, I'm against the system. That's fine. We see them in the suburbs in France or in Europe, and people saying, I'm against the system. In Africa, I'm against the system. And you look at the way they dress, this is the system. You are dressed by the system and through the system. And in fact, you are means through which the system is nurturing itself. So you might be with your mind against the system, you are with your behavior and with your consumerist attitude promoting the system. And in fact, you are supporting new type of slavery in the way you eat, in the way you drink, in the way you dress. And then you pray 5 times a day. And 5 times a day meant or means and should mean the way you liberate yourself from all type of dependency, alienation, and addiction, because addiction is the opposite, and we can be addicted to everything, which is, fashion, appearance, music, entertainment. Yes, we don't have a problem with this when it's mastered, when we know what we put some meanings to this. This is also very important in the whole process, and as Muslims we have to come to this. We have to come to this understanding. Having said that, it comes to the beginning of my talk by saying, if you come back to the very essence of the Tawheed, we understand that, let us be clear, we can't accept in the name of what we say when we say La ilaha illallah, there is no God and there is no deity but God, that in fact all this meant the unity of humanity based on لَقَدْ قَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. We give dignity to human being, and dignity is protecting their freedom, protecting their freedom and their responsibility through knowledge and through autonomy, and no acceptance in any way of new type of slavery or dependency or systems that are transforming beings into means. That's not us. That's not Islam. And if we are to be active, this is where we have to be involved, and this is where we have to resist to all this, any system that is providing this. And it means to be self-critical with what is happening in Muslim majority countries when it comes to corporal punishment, when it comes to new slavery, when it comes to domestic violence, when it comes to domestic workers or migrant workers, when it comes to the way we deal with racism, in the way we deal in the name of Islam sometimes, with some scholars being silent and justifying what is unjustifiable. These are processes through which we come back to the essence of Islam, the meaning of Tawheed, the meaning of the way we deal with humanity and human beings, the way we understand this dignity that is essential for us, and then we can't keep quiet. We can't just pray 5 times a day if our prayers for our own liberation is not to support the liberation of all. If you liberate yourself and not and accept others to be alienated, if your freedom means the slavery of others, there is a problem with your freedom. And if your conscience is happy while people are treated without conscience, it means that there is a problem with your conscience and with your way of dealing with your own humanity, which is in fact exactly the opposite of what Islam is all about. Islam is be a human being and serve human beings. Help them to be free as much as you want to be free. And this is what you find in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى يحب لأخيه ما يحبه لنفسه. No one will complete his or her faith as long as she or he doesn't want for his or her brother what he or she wants for herself. You want freedom? Protect the freedom. You want to see your dignity protected? Protect the dignity of others. And you want to be autonomous? Never accept the dependency and the slavery of others. If you accept this, it means that you are accepting the unacceptable. Wallahu a'lam wa a'la wa ahkam. Barakallahu fiq jami'an. I am going to see, and I want once again to thank my brother Obaida, who is providing me with the questions, and then I will come to the questions, just look at some of the questions, try to tackle some of the questions, and we'll see how it works right now. So let me just look at the question that I have here. Are they here or not? Okay, let me check the question here. Freedom includes the freedom to give or to get rid of his liberty. Don't you think so? Doesn't the ignorant people the happiest after all? No, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that at the end you better accept your own slavery, and if you are slave by your own will, at the end you will be happy. And if you don't know, if you are ignorant, no, I think that these are things that were said even by the people who were producing slavery in history. We have to understand here that for us, we are promoting humanity. Bani Adam means that we have to promote them with knowledge, with consciousness, with freedom, and to make them responsible. At the end, to speak about faith is to speak about freedom and to speak about free human beings. So we cannot just acknowledge the fact that there are systems that are alienating, and at the end it's better to be ignorant than to be knowledgeable. No, knowledgeable is not our happiness based on ignorance is something that in Islam is problematic. Happiness should be married, merged, reconciled with knowledge. So these are conditions that we have to respect. If not, it would be possible then to let people not being educated and say, okay, your ignorance is protecting you from the big questions. Oh, maybe their ignorance is protecting them from big questions, but it's not protecting us who are keeping them in this state from being questioned about our responsibility to educate and to let the people being free. So no, I wouldn't go as far as that. I think that this could be a problem in our understanding of what it means here when it deals with freedom. So let me see here the other question. Let me. All this belongs to the classical humanism. Where is Islam's specificity here? But who told you that Islam, the very essence of Islam is to promote humanism, and in fact, if you listen to what I said at the beginning, is our way of dealing, our understanding of Tawheed is the way we are liberating human being from all kind of alienation and addiction and new slavery. So in fact, yes, the essence of Islam is humanism with God. But be careful not to idealize humanity, not to idealize human being. Is in fact to be very cautious. Be cautious and be cautious with your trust in humanity. But we have common values. So this is the universality of our principles. But at the end, what we are talking about here is what is the deep meaning of your freedom? How are you going intimately to go to liberate yourself? And this is what I said in the first lecture, is through this spiritual, this link, this relationship, this transcendence in your heart, this relationship to God. But the relationship to God is liberating yourself from any kind of dependency. But at the same time, you should not do this for yourself alone. You should not save yourself and let the people being lost. No. You are a witness, and your The fact that you bear witness to your message before people means that you have to be involved. And here you will find something which is the humanistic values. But the humanistic values is coming from where? Coming from El Fitra. It's in us, it's in the humanity. There is something which is a spark in us. So it might be that through humanity or humanistic approach you can find the transcendence. This is none of our business. It's between human beings and God, but at the end we have common values. So I'm saying, oh, I don't see anything specifically Islamic. What is specifically Islamic is that you can't, as a Muslim, avoid or prevent yourself or protect yourself from coming to these big questions. So at the end, when you pray 5 times a day with God, it means that this is where you reconcile your heart and your mind with these principles. So praying God is coming back to the very essence of humanity. This has to do with humanism, yes, but not only. The true way for us to be close to the humanistic values is to be close to the creator of humanity. This is what we think, and this is the way we would put it as something which is our understanding here as Muslims. So, another question here. Do you agree that ultimately free trade will resolve global inequities? No, I don't think so. I don't think that free trade is going to solve. I think that anyone who is saying free trade is this free trade is free for the powerful, not for the people who have no power. And at the end we need regulations, and this is exactly what our religion is saying. But what now Stiglitz, for example, or Soros, or people who were promoting the very essence of the free market, now are coming and saying we are not going to solve the problem like this, because free market is in fact, with no regulation, is protecting the rich and sometimes creating crisis. And among the rich, the more vulnerable people are going to pay the price. The rich are going to be protected by the very definition or the very status that they have, but the process is not based on justice and equity. So no, free market per se, capitalism or neoliberalism is in fact part of the problem, and it's creating new slavery by saying you are all free, but some are freer than others, and some are protected by rules that we don't give to the poor people. So there is unjust regulations. In fact, the free market is not a free market. It's a market with specific regulations protecting some rich companies, some rich countries, and exposing others to a kind of a free market that is taking from them their capacity to resist or to protect themselves. And I would say that this is where it's a problem. People who are defending the Enlightenment criticize religion for reducing our freedom by working against our emancipation of conscience. Can you comment about that? That's a good point, and we have to face it as Muslims, because in fact, if we look at the way religions were taught, or even Islam or Christianity or Judaism or the way we are talking about or teaching Islam was very much you have to respect the rules, you have to respect the rituals, but not always promoting intellect, free questioning, critical thinking. And this is where, in the West, the emancipation of the intellect came against religion, which was not the case in many other religions, and Islam was not following in the footsteps of Christianity. But still, yet today, what we have is that we feel so much in danger that we end up coming with rules. But rules are sometimes preventing us from this way of being autonomous. We have within the Muslim communities some brothers and some sisters who are so much obsessed with the rules that you can see that there is no liberation process. It's just to be jailed into a very narrow understanding of the rules, but not the meaning of the rules that are helping you to be autonomous, that you're helping you to face the world and to say, I'm not here by accident. I'm not here to shut up. I'm not here to accept what is happening. I'm here to change this world for the better. And at the end, it's not a question of number. It's a question of principle. You change one person, one human being, and John Paul II was right in saying this. He said in Christian terms something which is very Islamic, and we are all sharing this. If one person is suffering less in the world, it means that the world is better. Less suffering for one person and the world is better. Let us face it as it is. So I would say that sometimes we have this narrow understanding of our rules, narrow understanding of our I belong to Islam, I belong to the community, I follow the people, I implement the rules, but I don't get the substance, I don't get the meaning, I don't get this intimate revolution, this intellectual revolution, this revolution in my life, which means I'm reforming myself. I'm here for the better. I have to contribute. I have to be the voice for the voiceless. I have to be courageous. I have to experiment this. So praying during the night is where I get this energy to be able to face the world during the day, to face the world with this injustice. My praying during the night are this energy towards autonomy, energy towards freedom, energy towards liberation process. This is what I'm getting when I'm trying to isolate myself and to reform myself and to work against or to be involved in a personal process against all my alienations, all my dependencies, all my addictions, and there are many. And my addictions could transform me without anybody noticing it into a new slave, intimately speaking, a slave that is perceived as a free, but is following, like a sheep following all the people and being someone who is an object and no longer a subject. A society where executives can earn, or where executives earn 200 times what an average worker makes, it's also a form of slavery unknown in times of the Prophet. That's very true. And I think that what we can see now with salaries, it's true, but as I was saying, there is even worse than that with the way we have this division, international division of work, where the people are getting nothing, $1 a day, and yes, it's a new kind of slavery, and we have once again to be very cautious about this. And what about the freedom of women who do not live in the official slavery but are treated inhumanly even in modern society? Completely true. And I would say that, by the way, it's not only women who find men doing and experiencing the same, but yes, this imposition is, this commodification is for men and women in modern societies. And when you have this nurtured addictions towards ways of life, fashion, models of women, models of men. These are pressure that we have where it's shaping. We are colonized in a way. Our minds are colonized, and if our minds are colonized, we are creating this new kind of dependency and addictions sometimes. So yes, I would say that, and by the way, this is where women and men should come together instead of just competing about their rights. They should be allies about their freedom, their common freedom, and their mutual freedom when it comes to their dignity. Dr. Ramadan talked about how fashion and media have shaped people's life. I think that this is a disease of the heart that needs to be purified. My question is, how can we think out of the box? I tried during this lecture to say, okay, it's the way we understand Islam. It's the way we understand this, the process. We have to be very cautious. Purification here has to do with a way we deal with coming back to the essential questions, the essential principles, and the way we are freeing ourselves from alienation when it comes to the way we deal with ourselves, our instincts, our desires, our the attractions that we find in the world. Purification doesn't mean that we were bad or we are bad and we are there is this dark side. No, it's just coming back to the original light, this awareness, this consciousness, and it means also the way we deal with things. It's to put, you know, وَأَعْطِ كُلَّ ذِي حَقٍّ حَقًّا, give everything its own rights. So, for example, a subject is a subject. A human being is a human being. The dignified dimension of a human being or nature should be protected. And then an object is an object. So coming back to the essence is putting things in order. So this is the way we have to start with our own life, is the way we deal with ourselves, is the way we should never accept to be treated as object, as commodities in the world, and with people. And it comes by understanding the rules and the principles, the rituals of our religion. Praying is a liberation process, but if you pray and you are an object, you end up being an object which is praying. And this is a contradiction in term. You can't do that. You can't accept ending up like this with your life. So what if you end up being a consumerist object, an object that is consuming and fasting at the same time, which is what we are doing with our Ramadan? That's deep, that's dangerous, that's a subtle alienation, and I think that this is where it's an individual assessment, it's an individual responsibility that we need to face. And the last question is, Doctor, what can we do about it? Nothing. I think economic interests are above everything. Do you think? Do you consider that the return to spirituality can be the solution to the problem, to the problems of modern slavery? Yes, it could, and we can do something. And I repeated this because I got the same question in French before that. Be careful when you end up thinking that you are a slave, so you are a slave. It's when you think that you are a slave and you accept your status of being a slave, that you are a slave. And we should stop this victim mentality, looking at the world and saying, look, it's not possible, it's too complicated, they are too powerful. When you are acknowledging the power of the other or the power of the system, and you think that you are too weak, it means that you are bringing the power to the system because you are perceiving yourself of being weak. The weak is the one who is perceiving himself or herself as being weak. But the powerful, the one who is getting this understanding that I can make it, that it's possible, I have the means, I am a subject with the means of doing it, so everything is possible. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. There is no power and no strength but by God, means that you can, anything is possible. Anything is possible. And first to free yourself, so you have the means to be a free, autonomous human being. You can't start your life or being by saying, I can't do anything. So the first, if you victimize yourself, so you are going to be a victim. But if you empower yourself, so you are a subject facing a test. Be careful. If you victimize yourself, you are a victim. But if you empower yourself, so you are a subject facing the reality and facing the test and the challenges. So you face the test and you are an empowered subject. You victimize yourself and you end up being a victim. And if you look at the Prophet's life, he never accepted that. He never said it's too complicated when he was in Mecca, when he was in Medina. Because he said what? He said, La ilaha illallah wa atawakkalu ala Allah. And it means that whatever is going to happen, I am not going to be judged by the result. I'm going to be judged by my intention and my will to change it. And if I change one thing for one person. Look at this. If you see, you look at your mother, you look at your father, you look at a brother or a sister or a human being, and you see that they are happier tomorrow, you would say, yes, life is changing because of one person. So why are you looking at numbers? Why is number is the reference? No, the quality, the density, and this is where we should not count the number of converts to be happy that Islam is doing well. No, Islam is growing, but Muslims should assess what they are doing on based on quality, based on what they are doing, and at the end, this is where we should face it. Yes, we can do something, and we can free some people from their intimate alienation, intimate addiction, or social addiction, social slavery, and we can help workers and migrant workers and the domestic workers and migrants just in fact to free themselves and to be self-critical and to say, I'm not going to accept that. What is the meaning for us to pray 5 times a day to liberate ourselves when we are silent about people being slaves? What is the meaning of our freedom and our liberation process if this is connected, married, reconciled, or in fact connected to us neglecting the freedom of others? What is your liberation if you accept others' slavery? What is your dignity if you accept others' undignified way of being treated in this world? What is your role when you say that you are the best community? Why? Because you are commanding what is right and resisting what is bad. And what does it mean to be the community of the middle path, which in fact is promoting what is good and in fact that we have to bear witness to the truth before human being? What are you testifying? To what are you the witness? To the dignity of your message, helping to liberate humanity, or only as an individualist being trying to liberate yourself? Islam is not about you. Islam it's about you being with him and in the name of the one changing the world for the others. This is Islam and this is what we have to do. Wallahu a'lam wa a'la wa ahkam. Lots of questions. I took more than the time allocated. If you have questions, if there is anything that you want to add, go on the official Facebook page. You can add your comments. You can bring them there. Inshallah, next month we'll have another lecture around this topic. And just please let me know what you think and in which way we can improve or adapt what we are trying to do to your expectations, inshallah. And never forget to tell the people you love that you love them. And remember, as I'm always saying, take good care of yourself, because taking care of yourself is the way you show to God that you respect him, you respect yourself, and you care about the people who love you as much as you love them. Inshallah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.